Hello, my name is Lewis, and I'm going to do a few videos on the story of my life. And of course, the first question I'd be asking if I was you out there is, well, who is Lewis and why is he doing this video story in the first place? First of all, our world has changed drastically. We're in a new world. We're in a social media world, computer world, digital age. Many times we don't see the person on the other side of the computer, so we really don't know who we're talking to, who we're dealing with. So one reason is just to get my name out there and that you can get to know me a little bit. Secondly, I have some dreams and visions I want to go ahead and share, so I'm going to put together some different videos and slides, and you can decide how many you want to watch and look at. Um, when I stop and I review my life, I'm currently at the time of this recording age 59, almost 60. When I stop and I look back on 60 years, obviously I'm going to say to myself, well, what am I going to share? What am I going to talk to these people about? And with 60 years, there's obviously quite a few stories. So I've jotted down a few stories and I'm going to go ahead and talk about them a little bit. Generally, most people don't talk about religion or politics or different things like that. Unfortunately, it's hard to talk about our story without talking about some of the stories and issues and where we've come from. So I'm going to cover a few things that some of the way that I actually grew up. I actually grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, United States, and South Florida in 1957. And it was a very small city at that time. But through a process of events, I actually got involved with the church and actually went to the church for 43 years out of my 60 years. So more than two-thirds of my life, I actually went to one church in South Florida. Just going to go through the story a little bit. It'll sort of set a basis of a lot of the other stories that I say into the future. And the way it started out is my grandfather on my mother's side was actually a carpenter. He traveled around from state to state, um, framing homes, wood framing, construction. So wherever the work was, that's where he went. And he just happened to be in Fort Lauderdale at this one time around 1956-57. My grandmother on my dad's side actually lived in Fort Lauderdale. Both of my grandmothers just happened to be going to this little mission church in South Florida, in Fort Lauderdale. In the process of this, you can call it a coincidence or whatever you want to say, but my mom and my dad met at a restaurant and started dating, and in the process, the moms asked them to come to the church there to visit. They were both about 17, 18, 19, right in there. They decided to come to this church. In the process, they got married, they decided to go to the church, and a year later after they were married, I was born, and I was associated with that church for the next 43 years. So I guess all of us are really a product of our environment. Some of us have maybe grown up in a home like that. Some of us maybe have not been involved with it at all. It seems totally foreign, but I guess we're all a product of our environment and that around us. This wasn't really a usual church. It was a small little rescue mission, and what it did is it helped alcoholics and homeless people to get off the street. And they would have a service at the church for the guys as well. In the process, myself, my siblings, and my parents would go to the church there, and in the process we would meet these different guys that was in the program. And from the very beginning, they just became my friends, almost like an uncle. And I remember sitting in the back of the church. Many times it was these donated theater seats. It would flip up just like you have in a theater. And on the bottom of all these seats, you'd have this bubble gum where everybody stuck their gum underneath their seat when they sat down. Of course, when it flipped up, everybody saw the gum. But so it wasn't your usual church at all. But these guys was always eating black licorice, and they would offer me and my sisters licorice and different things, and really treat us like their own kids. So it was quite an experience, and I grew up where I just really cared for the people that came in the program. the alcoholics, homeless people, and later even drug addicts. So that's sort of the beginning of my story, and I'll go through some other stories as we step through it here in just a moment. Hope you're having a great day. Talk to you later now. This is Lewis here again, and of course, you see the title here on the slide. It says, I have a dream, a really big dream. Do you want to hear my story? And throughout this story, video story, I'm going to be talking about this, a really big dream. And I think all of us probably have dreams and visions in our life, things that we would like to do, wish we did. And with me at age 60, I'm looking back now and actually reflecting back. I actually had a dream at about age 35. I'll go into that in more detail on a later slide. But that was 25 years ago. And so often we have a dream, we don't start the dream. And many people just go to their grave and nothing ever happens. It's just a lot of wishes and a lot of dreams. And I figured I would just document these thoughts and share it with other people and share this dream, because maybe this dream is for you and other people out there, not just for me. I think it'll just expand our thought process and what we can do, and actually put some reality to dreams, hopes, and visions for ourselves into the future. And we'll get into that in just a moment. Hope you're having a great day. This is Lewis here again. Hope you're having a great day. Just got a few questions here on the slide, and probably questions we can all ask ourselves. Why am I here? Where am I going? And what is my purpose in life? It's probably good for us all to really stop and meditate and think about these things. I guess we can wander aimlessly through life and not really accomplish a whole lot, but I think if we ask ourselves some deep questions and really focus and set some goals, we can accomplish some major things in life, actually change our world, change our society. So, just as I had to ask a question, why am I here? Where am I going, and what is my purpose in life? I'm not sure you can answer those questions just one time at one age in your life. I think you can ask yourself these questions at different times in your life. Like in my early 20s, when I got out of high school, getting ready to go to college, I think I could ask those questions. Help me to focus. For myself personally, when I got out of high school, well, actually since about age 12, I sort of knew what I was going to do. My dad worked for DOT, Department of Transportation in Florida. He was an engineer that built many of the highways, built I-95 and a lot of highways in Broward County. My uncle worked in the county and did a lot of the roads in Broward County there as well. So I guess engineering was in my blood. When I went to high school, I did the draftsman courses, I did the extra math, did all the extra courses heading to be an engineer. Started going to college, actually graduated high school 6 months early and actually overlapped my high school and college in January of my high school year. Started going to college and started taking courses, trigonometry, calculus, and all the different courses you take to be an engineer. Also started working for the state of Florida, first in surveying out in the field and then later in the design department, actually doing the drawing the plans for the highways, also calculating the cost to build the highways, etc. So doing a lot of the math and complicated math. Back when computers were brand new, we actually used punch cards to feed into the state computer. So anyways, I knew exactly where I was going from 18 through about 20. And then at about age 20, decided to refocus and decided to get out of engineering, and I decided to go to college in Texas, which is, I can talk about that later. But these questions have changed for me many different times in life, and sometimes we can look back on our life and say, you know what, I did this, this, and this, and I've accomplished my purpose in life, and just sort of write it off and say I'm done. And but quite frankly, we can move on in different phases of our life. There's different things we can do at different times. As we get older, we might slow down in certain areas, but then again, we might actually gain some wisdom from the experiences and mistakes we made earlier in life and from those that we were around us that we learned from. So, um, both myself and yourself, if you ask yourself these questions, why am I here? Where am I going? And what is my purpose in life? Talk to you later now. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about equal rights and justice for all, right? There was something that happened to me in my fourth grade when I was about age 10. And when I look back and I remember it, it helps me to focus and keep things in right perspective down the road in life. So we have different experiences in life, both positive and negative. Seems many times like the ones that are most emotional, sometimes negative, actually teach us the most, even more than the others. And in fourth grade, we were in class and we had these seats you sit in. And I had two pencils. I had lent my pencil to a girl behind me, and I turned around and asked the girl. I put my hand on her desk. I said, "Can I have my pencil back?" And she took my pencil and jammed it into my hand, and it actually put the lead into my lifeline on my hand, and the pencil was literally sticking straight up out of my hand. Obviously, we got a little emotional at that point, and the teacher scolded us both and sent us to the principal's office. And at age 10, I was born in 57. This would have been 1967. So you look at the history books and figure out what's going on in about 1967. It'll give you a little focus on what's going on. And we went up to the principal's office, and he said, "What happened?" I explained exactly what I just told you. And the bottom line is what the principal did. He said, "Okay," and he basically paddled both of us. He paddled me and he paddled the girl that jammed my pencil in my hand. And I said, "Wait a minute, I mean, why am I getting paddled? She stuck the pencil in my hand." And read the title of this slide again, Equal Rights and Justice for All. So we were going through a time of change, and they definitely wanted to establish equal rights, so they just paddled both of us just to make sure there was no misunderstanding on anybody's part. And so we both got justice. We both got the paddle, whether we deserved it or not, or one deserved it or the other. And after that incident, of course, the girl, she's jammed the pencil in my hand. We both gotten a paddle. Now she says, "I'm going to beat you up." And this girl was probably a foot or so taller than me, and I was scared to death. And I tried to get home and protect myself. For 2 or 3 days, I was worried about this girl beating me up because she was just mean enough to do it. And but through that incident, I could have caused it to create hate feelings or different things like that. Um, but I've had multiple incidences like that in life, and you probably have too. You probably had somebody that didn't treat you right. And you know what? Life is not fair. And I found that out a long time ago. But what we do with it, what are we going to do with that when somebody hurts us or does us wrong? Are we going to get angry, bitter, have unforgiveness in our heart? Because it's going to destroy us and hurt us in the long run. So ultimately, what we need to do is be able to overcome, to forgive other people, to love other people, to be not prejudiced against other people, um, because these incidences are going to happen, and we just need to learn from them. So what are we going to do with these incidences? Are we going to allow them to destroy us and hurt us in our life and into the future? Are we going to say, you know what, I am not going to let this destroy me or hurt me. I'm not going to let it destroy me. So treat everybody kindly and be good to everybody. Hope you're having a great day. Talk to you later now. Hello, this is Lewis here, and on this little video, I'm going to be talking about I'm moving to an alcohol rehab center at age 17. So going to an alcohol rehab center at age 17, and no, I wasn't an alcoholic, and no, it wasn't for me. But this little move had a major change on my life for the future. When I was 17, we moved in the summer between my junior and senior year of high school. We moved across town, moved into another home. At that time, I worked for Publix grocery stores, so I actually had to transfer to another Publix grocery store. Um, so it was quite a bit of change for me, but actually what happened is the little rescue mission we talked about earlier that my mom and dad started going to when they was about 18, 19. My dad worked for DOT for about 20 years and retired 20 years. And the gentleman that was the director of the rehab center actually passed away from a heart attack, and the founder asked my dad to come and be the director at the mission. And so we moved, and the policy was basically if you were staff working for the church, that you moved on the property, you lived on the property full-time, 24/7, with the alcohol, drug addicts, homeless people. I mean, your house was on their property. No separate fences, security. You lived in the same location with them. So we moved from our house that my mom and dad had bought and paid for, and we moved on to the church property to help where my dad was going to be the director of this alcohol rehab center. My dad was making a pretty good salary with DOT. He decided to work for the church for a very small stipend, and my mom was working for a lawyer in the top of the Landmark Bank in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. There was only 2 lawyers in the top floor there. Her boss was one of the 2, and she quit that job to come and work for a small stipend to help in the church. So basically they both gave up everything financially, their home, the security and all that, basically to help homeless people, drug addicts, alcoholics, etc. So I got to see this firsthand. I'd already been seeing it for 17 years going to the church. Now I got to see it firsthand living on the property and with my mom and dad giving up everything to go there. So moved there at age 17. Obviously this is having a major impact on my life. And anyways, hope you're having a great day. Talk to you later. Hey, this is Lewis again, and I'm going to talk a little bit about when I went to college at age 20. Again, I'd been going to college to be an engineer from 18 to 20, and was working for DOT. Planned on working my way up into engineering and design. And at age 20, I felt a challenge to go to college, and I'd already been going through the regular college, but now this here was actually a small Bible college, more of a missionary Bible college in San Antonio, Texas. And at that time, before that, I'd really been into, nice cars, and I'd had a brand new Trans Am, and was into all that stuff. Working for DOT, just making money and buying fancy cars and stuff. And felt this challenge to go to college. And I was only making $4 an hour back then at DOT. That's wages have changed substantially. When I started Publix at age 16, I was making $1.60 an hour. So things have changed quite a bit. But I was paying $160 a month on the car, plus my insurance was $1,040 a year, almost $100 a month. That was at $4 an hour, $100 a month for insurance, plus gas and other expenses. So the last thing I wanted to do was take that car payment to college. I didn't know if I'd have a job when I got out there. So ended up selling the car, get me an old Ford LTD. And my dad and I went and picked it out at a used car lot, and the muffler was dragging on the ground. We took a clothes hanger and tied it up and drove it home. and I did a little bit of work on it 2 or 3 days and painted it, packed it up, and headed out to college about 3 days later, and totally changed my life. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you another little story here because it's very significant right here. Um, my dad, my mom, I grew up in a very conservative, very good family home. My dad worked many times 3 jobs, my mom 1 or 2, um, just to basically pay the bills. We were probably below average income, and but hardworking. And in the midst of all that, they would still take us to church 3 or 4 times a week. So they were committed to that as well as the work. But my dad grew up with a father and 4 brothers, and they were pretty rough and tough. And love probably wasn't a thing that was passed around a lot when he grew up. So when I grew up as a child, my dad loved us, and he showed his love by work and providing. Um, but as far as saying, I love you, or I love you, son, or any kind of hardly affection or a hug or anything like that, there was really no verbal or any kind of affection at all. And I remember the day that I went to college, I had been working the uh, 2 to 3 days getting the car ready. Then I packed my car up. I'd been packing it all day long, and it was about 5 o'clock. It was near dusk at the end of the day, and I was getting ready to drive out of my driveway in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, to San Antonio, Texas, which is a 27-hour drive straight through. Because I used to drive straight through. I didn't stop for hotels or nothing. And my dad came out and he hugged me and he said, "I love you, son." And I said, "I love you too." And I got in my car and I drove away. And I started heading north on I-95, eventually to go over to I-10 and then go I-10 west over to San Antonio, Texas. And it was just me in the car, but I started crying, and I couldn't hardly stop crying because I was overwhelmed with so much emotion that my dad said, "I love you." And I think so often, especially us as men, so often we're so macho, we got to be this, we got to be that, and act like this and act like that. And sometimes we hold back affection or love, or even saying the word love, and because we want to be macho. And sometimes I think it takes more guts to say, "I love you." Because as a man, and me growing up not hearing that very often, it's not very comfortable for me to hear it or say it. And most of my life, I've chosen to use it. And when I had my own family, my wife and my 2 sons, which I still have, I chose to articulate that verbally. And, when they leave, give them a hug and say, "I'm proud of you, son," and articulate a little bit of emotion. So it's a choice that I've made over time. I think it's the right choice. Everybody has to choose for themselves what they're going to do. But I think sometimes we need to show that we care for other people, and that could be our wives, our spouses, our children, our family, our grandchildren, anyone around us. There's a lot of people out there hurting, and a lot of people need to feel loved and accepted. So, anyways, that's my thoughts. Hope you're having a great day. Talk to you later. Hello, this is Lewis again, and here I'm going to talk about I'm getting married. My proposal, or was it hers, at age 23? And my wife and I, we both went to the same high school, same Bible college, same church, so we had some common ground. And we got married probably within a year after we both graduated from college. But this story here that I'm going to tell you has significantly changed my life and a lot of the principles and things I set forth into the future and what I've accomplished in my life for the last 37 years. Um, My wife's name is Pamela, and I determined that I loved her and she was the woman that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with, and took her out to a restaurant and was going to propose to her. Went to the restaurant, it was a pretty nice restaurant, picked out a nice restaurant, and when we got through, I planned on walking out onto the balcony outside the restaurant and proposing to her right there, which overlooked some water, and thought it would be a nice setting. And after I got through eating, the doors were locked and I couldn't get out there into the balcony. So that didn't work out. So we got in our car and left the restaurant, and I actually just took her to a park and was out by the car, and I was just getting ready to ask her to marry me. And she said she was scared to death in hindsight. She said, I didn't know if you was going to break up with me or ask me to marry you. But but anyways, I asked her if she'd be my wife. And she responded with a question rather than just giving me a straight answer, yes or no. She responded with a question. He said, yes, but under one condition. When we have our children, can I come home and raise our children? And I paused and thought about it a minute or two, and I said, sure, because I knew that's what I wanted anyways. I wanted a mother that was there for my children and that could take care of them. And I was willing to do that. We were 23. We got married. Decided we wait about a year, be newlyweds for about a year. Decided about age 24, okay, time to have kids. Guess what? No kids. 24, 25, 26, on and on and on. Went through the whole medical process, and after about 2 to 3 years, she said, can we adopt? And of course, me, just a confident male, oh no, it'll be all right. Let's just wait, just be patient, it'll work out. Year after year, can we adopt? Can we adopt? Can we adopt? No, let's just wait, it'll work out. And then at about 27, 28, she went through an operation. We actually ended up moving to Georgia, which I'm going to talk about a little bit in a moment here. But in the process, let me just stop right there for a moment because I don't want to get too far into the other stories. Anyways, the bottom line is that question that she asked me, can I go home and raise my children, totally affected what we did in the future, because rather than her being out and being a full-time mom and working a job 40 hours a week and bringing in all that extra income, we didn't have that for most of our life, and it affected our overall income. But I'm still glad we did in hindsight, because we have two wonderful sons that have done wonderfully, and I attribute a lot of it to my wife and the time she spent with them. And I wouldn't have it any other way. You know, money is something that's going to burn up with vapor. It's going to go away anyways. The character and time you put into your children is something that's everlasting. So, anyways, I did ask her to marry me, but yes, she did have her own proposal as well. So, anyways, hope you're having a great day. Talk to you later now. Bye-bye. Hello, this is Lewis here again, and this next story is one that significantly changed our life and even everything we've been able to do up to this point in time. And I'm going to get into a thought later that all things work together for good to them that love God and are called according to His purpose. And this move that we're getting ready to make here at Atlanta, Georgia, there's about 3 significant things that happened during this 4-year period, and I believe they were orchestrated beyond myself. If I go back, when I graduated from Bible college at age 23 and got married, that was 1980. My dad was a head administrator, like I'd said before. He had come to the mission to be the director, and in 1982 he left to go to Atlanta, Georgia. Obviously, with a church or any kind of business, there's changes, and they was going through some changes. And in '82, he ended up going to Georgia. Well, I was staff. Like I said, I had been the dock foreman and then later became the assistant director of Fort Lauderdale. Um, and in this process, between my dad leaving, being the administrator, two other significant things happened around 1982. One, um, my grandmother passed away from leukemia, which was my dad's mother. And because my dad had gone to North Carolina, um, some of that responsibility fell upon me at age 25 at that time to sort of look out for her. And then also another thing is my uncle passed away with a massive heart attack suddenly in 1982 when I was age 25 as well. So I had my dad leaving, I had my grandmother passing away, I had my uncle, which worked at the ministry there repairing refrigerators and things that were sold. They refurbished them. Um, he passed away. And then the other thing that I was dealing with is my wife was wanting to have a baby and going through the medical issues, and she couldn't. So I was dealing with that as well. Bottom line, for the next 2 years, it was a struggle between 82 and 84, between age 25 and 27. Finally decided at 27 I was going to leave the church, the ministry, and quite frankly never intended to come back ever again. I was done with that. That was that part of my life. I was going to move on. Um, at that point, I was trying to make a logical decision. I'm age 27. I have a wife. At that time, I had no children. What am I going to do to provide for my family? And at that point, I evaluated three different options. One, I could sell real estate as a real estate agent. Number two, I can become a computer technician. Number three, I can do computer software programming. At that time, the computer was just cranking up big time around 1982, and I had already done some software programming on my own through the church. I'd actually been doing quite a bit of my own programming and learning programming, so I enjoyed that kind of work. The bottom line is I chose to go to a technical school in Atlanta, Georgia, sold everything I had, and also sold, I had almost a brand new car, sold it, and went and got an old car again. It's almost like doing the Bible college thing again, selling my Trans Am to go to Bible college. Now I'm selling my uh, almost brand new Toyota Celica, gorgeous car. Um, and decided to go to Atlanta. Had $1,000 in my pocket, put the $1,000 down on college, and went to technical school. In the process, I went to the school. I chose a Total Technical Institute over DeVry because DeVry was a 2-year school, 24 months. The other school was 8 months, same amount of hours and credit hours, which means I had to cram all that study, time, and everything into 8 months versus 24 months. Plus, the cost at that time for DeVry was $10,000. My cost was $5,000. I put the $1,000 down and got student loans for the remaining $4,000 and paid my way through. In the process, at this point, you got to remember I'm 27 years old. I know it seems relatively young, but there was guys that were coming straight out of high school, 18, 19, 20, that were going into this technical school. They had just got out of all their trigonometry classes, their calculus, and their mathematics and everything, and they were just all buzzed up on top of everything. And they were sharp. And me and this older guy, they put us up together, and they kept all the younger guys together. And we would have a lab in the afternoons, build circuits out of components, etc. Bring real theory into real life. And they would be done in an hour or two and put their feet up in the deck and just chat and talk in the classroom. And we were just sitting there struggling, trying to figure out how to do it and get it working and do the lab. And that's pretty much the way I did it. I had to tough it through. And it was hard. But Believe it or not, at the end of that school, I graduated the valedictorian of the class and actually got the best placement out of all the students. And went to work for a company called Harris Lanier. Worked for them about 3-4 years, and learned a whole lot about computers, from operating systems, multi-operating systems, from CP/M, MS-DOS, AES, Xenix, etc. All kinds of things. Learned a lot about mathematics. I learned about base 2, base 8, base 16. With computers, obviously, we know that they all work like a light switch. You turn it on and off. Zeros and ones, right? A zero is down, a one is up, or vice versa. And so mathematically, you work in base 2 or binary system. And so we count in the base 10 system, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then you shift the digit 1, 0. It's a base 10 system. Binary is 0, 1. So you know 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, etc. So you're counting in binary and shifting the digits just with zeros and ones. Well, octal is base 8, which if you shift the digits over to 3, you can do it faster. And then base 16 is really Egyptian mathematics, brilliant mathematics, and basically that's hexadecimal, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, capital A, B, C, D, E, F. And then you count with those numbers. So I was trained on an engineering level by engineers in this school from computers on the code in the boot prom, which is called the bootstrap or boot ROM, read-only memory, that actually turns the computer on and tells everything what to do, the keyboard, the mouse, the screen. And so we were trained on a very high technical level. And I was able to experience 4 years of a very high-tech company that manufactured satellites for the government. They manufactured chips, etc. The other thing is, through the process, I was blessed within 2 years to be one of the top technicians in the whole southeastern United States. Also, our home base for Harris Lanier specifically, was in Atlanta, Georgia, which means they had the design center there, they had the test center there, they had the national tech support there. So all the people were there, and then our demo room, which I was in charge of, that we demoed to all the big clients in Atlanta, Georgia. I had to keep all the hardware and software up to date. So it really gave me some major training in networking and computer design interfacing. So that foundation, I know it's very technical for most people to hear this, but it's established me in computers for the future. The other thing that we actually did is we were actually testing computers 2 years before they were released to the field. And you got to remember, this is about 1986, 87, right in there. And we were testing stuff to come on the internet in the next 5 to 10 years into the future. One of my territories was Georgia Tech, and there was a couple buildings there where they had top secret stuff that they actually tested. And we would actually bring our computers in, and we would connect them with other major systems like Sun Microsystems, IBM mainframes, etc. And then we would just let them talk together through the thick black Ethernet cables, TCP/IP, Telnet, etc. Very basic, before they ever had the interface on the internet as we see it today to make it easier for users. It was back, and you actually typed in very basic commands to do very basic processes. So anyways, in my time going to Atlanta, there's 3 major things that happened. Number 1, my wife was able to get surgery through a leading doctor that his picture was on the front cover of Time magazine. When she went in and looked in his waiting room, his picture was on the front of Time magazine, and he was training doctors all across the nation. That was the doctor that did her surgery. So she had one of the best doctors with the newest technology, which we had knew nothing about. We didn't plan that. It just, quote, happened, right? Number two, um, we were able to adopt our son, which I'm getting ready to talk a little bit about in the future. And then number three, I was able to get my technical training in computers, which established a very technical platform and base for my whole future and what I'm doing. So, anyways, hope you're having a great day. Talk to you later now. Hello, this is Lewis here again, and what I'm going to talk about in this one is my first son, what a blessing, at age 30. And of course, we've been talking about different incidences in my life, and sometimes we might say, oh, it was a coincidence, that just happened. But once you start hearing some of these stories, you know they're not a coincidence. It's amazing, some of the details on what's actually happened through these stories. But in the process of us going to Atlanta, Georgia, which I talked about in my previous video, um, my wife had a very good job at Doctor's Hospital. She was the executive secretary to the head of nursing, and the head of nursing was also the assistant administrator of the whole hospital. So my wife actually did the minutes for board meetings and for things such as that for the administrator, assistant administrator, and the head of nursing, and all the hustle bustle that goes with the head nurse, the head of nursing, administrating all of the nursing in the hospital. So that was my wife's job. She actually made very good money. She was very good at what she did. So I was working at Harris Lanier making my salary. She was making her salary, which she was doing pretty good. She's about making as much or more than me, quite frankly. And right after we moved to Atlanta and she got her surgery, when she got her surgery, that there totally changed my life. It once I saw that and what she was going through, and I remembered she kept saying, "Can we adopt? Can we adopt? Can we adopt?" And I could say, "No, let's wait. Let's wait." And after she went through her surgery, it just did something to me. And it wasn't about me. It was about, you know, my wife deserves better than this. It's not about me and my ego and me being a man and this and that. It's about, moving on here. And so anyways, we decided to apply for adoption. And we went to a church there in Georgia, and they had a Home for Unwed Mothers, which is an extension of the church ministry. And we filled out an application, and they said it can take up to 5 years. We filled out that application, and probably within 9 months to a year after we filled out that application, they called us and said, I'll go through the details here in just a moment. They warned us about we went through the whole home study and qualification financially and all that. We had to go through the whole 9 yards. Quite extensive study. And then about a week or two before the child was born, they called and said, it won't be much longer. And then they ended up calling, I think it was on a Monday, and they called my wife and said, your baby's on its way. And they took the birth mother to Tucker, Georgia Hospital and started the process. It was going to be a C-section. And my wife turned her resignation into her job that day. And I quit. I'm getting my baby. Quit. And she only worked there another 3-4 days. And the baby was supposed to come home on a Thursday. And we get a phone call late that afternoon. And they say, well, the mother's having second thoughts. We're not sure she's going to go through with this as far as the adoption. She may keep the baby. Of course, this is devastating. My wife's been waiting 7 years. She's built up a year or two emotional. Been told on Monday, it's right here. We got my mom and dad in our house. We've got her mom up from South Florida in our house. And Pam and I sitting there all dressed up, ready to wait for somebody to knock on the door and say, here's your baby. And then we get this phone call. And in the process, They actually made a phone call the next day and actually brought the baby to us the very next day, which is on a Friday, I believe. And that there was absolutely awesome. And that day, that Friday, just happened to be my 30th birthday. So my son was born 5 days before my birthday. He was supposed to come to our house on the fourth day after he was born. He came home the fifth day after he was born on my birthday. In the state of Georgia, you have to wait 6 months before you can do the legal adoption with the judge. My wife is 6 months younger than me. We did the paperwork in the judge's chambers on my wife's 30th birthday. So he was born on my 30th birthday. We legally adopted him on my wife's 30th birthday. When we knew we were going to adopt a child, we didn't. We picked out some girls' names and some boys' names. And we picked out this one name even before we looked up the meaning. And then later we bought a book in a store that gave the names, the meanings of the names. But we both felt that our first son, he was going to be a boy. And we both felt his name was supposed to be Jonathan. And we didn't even know what that name meant. And then later we bought the book and looked it up, and the name Jonathan means Jehovah given. So our son Jonathan is Jehovah given and is a blessing. So hope you're having a great day. Hello, this is Lewis again, another video here, and on our slide here it says I'm moving back to the Alcohol Rehab Center again to help others age 31 to 43. Looks like this is a repetitive cycle in my life to move back to the Alcohol Rehab Center. I did it at 17, I did it at 23, and now I'm doing it at age 31. We adopted Jonathan at age 30, and he was about a year old. In the process, I had gone to Atlanta, Georgia at age 27, and every year for the next 4 years, the head administrator called and asked me to come back. And here it is at age 31, he's asking me the fourth time to come back. And I told him no all the other times before, never intended to come back. I mean, look, I've gone to computer school, I've gone to Harris Lanier, I'm one of the top technicians in the whole southeastern United States. They're sending me into other states to troubleshoot the worst problems nobody else can figure out. I mean, that's my job. That's what I do. And making money, got a nice house on the lake, got a baby, a wife at home. Everything's going great, right? And they're calling me back. So, but my heart was being challenged, and this tug was really strong on my heart. And I just couldn't get away from it. At this point in time, at age 31, I actually had quite a few opportunities. Harris had bought out Lanier Business Products, and it was a 5-year transition. This was at the end of the 5 years, so I had been employed 4 years. They were making major changes, and there was a lot of stuff going on. But I had one offer from the Southeastern Service Manager, which became the National Tech Support Director. He actually offered me a job in National Tech Support, which was right there in Atlanta, Georgia. I could have stayed in Atlanta where I was. I had another job with a high-tech company which was doing all the new technology as far as personal computers and the networking and all the leading technology in that area. I would have been in the very leading edge of what was going on and continued to be in the mainstream. The other thing was 3M had a division where they had copiers, faxes, etc. And my district manager was moving over there and becoming the district manager, and he was offering me a job to come over there. I could have come over there, which financially, if I was just looking at money, that would have been the best thing I could have ever done. Can you imagine getting 3M stocks and all the growth in that company over the last 35 years? But anyways, the fourth one was going back to my church and working for a little bit over minimum wage and living on the property 24/7 with no real privacy, fishbowl living, to help homeless, alcoholics, drug addicts, etc. And I chose option 4. I said yes even before I knew where I was living. I lived in Fort Lauderdale before, in Boynton Beach. They had recently bought a property in Okeechobee. I'd committed to taking the job. My wife and I drove down there one weekend, and when we drove there, and before we even got there, we were looking and could see these lines of trailers, mobile homes, these shotgun old people would take these little single wide trailers, and after they used them 20 years and they were worn out, about ready to fall apart, they donate them to the church, and then the church would strap them down and they would use them for the housing for the staff and for the men. That's how poor they were, because they spent all their money on the land. They didn't have much money to do anything. And once I saw that, my wife and I saw it driving down the road before I even pulled in the driveway. We said, "Oh, that is ugly." And my stomach sank inside. I felt so sick. I felt like I'd passed everything up. But that's where we're supposed to go. Talk to you later. Hey, this is Lewis again, and just going to follow up on this here. I have a dream, a really big dream, to help others around the world at age 35. So I'd come back to the church. I've been back there about 4 years because I came back in about age 31. And I was already busy working there. I was working at Okeechobee, Fort Lauderdale, Boynton Beach, doing whatever I needed to do. They would ask me to move here and there and troubleshoot whatever I needed to do, computers, budgets. I'd do whatever they asked me to do. And but at about age 35, I felt this challenge of a bigger dream, a dream that would actually not just be in South Florida, but actually would cover the world. And I can't even articulate all of it at this point in time. I've got a lot of notes written down from the last, 25 years. And but anyways, when I stop and I think, when I even see that word dream, I think of Martin Luther, and I think of his speech, and he says, "I have a dream," and he had a dream to change the world, and he did, and it cost him in the process. But you know what? That change came about because he had a dream, and I think we all need to have some kind of a dream or a vision, a goal, um, to accomplish other things, to help other people. Anyways, I hope you're having a great day. Hello, it's Lewis here again, and on this slide it says diabetes, not me. That's for other people, right? At age 35. I don't know if you watched the video previously. It said I have a dream at age 35. It's like I had a dream and all these different things, and even articulated and wrote a lot of the things down. And the amazing thing is I got diabetes at the same time, almost like it was trying to slow me down. I don't think it's any coincidence that both of this happened at the same age, at the same time. I can logically try to figure out, why it happened, this or that. But I believe more than anything it was tied to this destiny of the future that I should be on track with. But, life is full of surprises. Nobody knows the cards that we're going to be dealt with, what we're going to deal with, what we're going to do with that. And I sure didn't ever think I was going to get diabetes. I was very active physically, younger, and lifting weights and water skiing and tennis and all kind of stuff. And, going out boating and just having a great time, having a great time. And working all the time, working on the dock, swinging a 16 and 20-pound sledge, working hard, working long hours. Most of my life, I've worked 18 hours a day and just got a little bit of sleep in between. If I worked my regular job, I worked other stuff in the evenings, trying to make part time. And if you remember my story with my wife proposing to me that she stay home with the children, that I've actually worked many, many, many hours extra trying to make up for the difference. When I worked for Lanier, I worked, I didn't just work 8 to 5 like the other 20 technicians in the office. I was there at 7, and I didn't leave till about 10 o'clock every night. And I worked Saturdays from about 7 o'clock to 12 or 2 in the afternoon every Saturday. And if it wasn't that another job, then I was doing something else part-time in between. So I've worked hard most of my life. Sometimes physically, whatever, computers, whatever it was. But, you know, life, we can't control what happens in life. There's different diseases that happen to different people, and they think they're healthy, and next thing you know, they got cancer, or they got this, or they got that. And sometimes they'll use the medical field or whatever, and many times they can overcome that disease or whatever it is. And then of course there's prayer as well and miracles. So, but in some cases, even with medicine and prayer, sometimes the miracles don't happen. Sometimes we have to walk through the circumstances and deal with everything one day at a time. So that one thought that I said earlier, all things work together for good to them that love God and to them that are called according to his purpose. Number one, do you love God? Are you called according to his purpose? If you say yes to those two, then all things work together for good. You mean even if you get diabetes? Yes. Because it can teach you other lessons. Hardships in life teach you lessons. And you can choose to get bitter or angry, or you can choose to hit them head on and deal with them and do the best you can with what you got. That's all you can do. There's no use being negative about it. It's not going to help. You might as well be positive and do what you can and go forward. And sometimes it does slow us down. And sometimes it slows us down in our purpose of saying, well, you know what, I can't do this because of. Or I can't do as much as I used to because of. And sometimes we have to deal with those kind of excuses, and I do as well. So, anyways, sometimes these issues cause problems. I remember the first 2 years I had diabetes, they gave me a little blue pill. It was called Micronase. I took the little blue pill for about 2 years, and it was okay. After 2 years, it didn't work anymore. Then the doctor wanted to put me on insulin injections twice a day. And I remember when I went through that, I had to go to the doctor's office twice a day for 60 days or 2 months, 120 visits. And it didn't seem like they knew what they was doing, because they was bouncing my numbers up and down like a yo-yo and didn't know what to do. And I remember right in the middle of it, it was a summer, that we were having a family reunion, which we didn't have very often. And I wanted to go to the family reunion. I lived in Boynton Beach, and this reunion was like over on the west coast of Florida, like over somewhere in Tampa or somewhere over that way. And that doctor would not let me go to that family reunion. He said, no, you got to do your insulin here in the morning, you got to do it in the afternoon. And he refused to release me and let me go. I don't know why, I just didn't go anyways. And my wife went with my son, and the rest of my family went to the reunion, and I missed it. And they haven't had any major reunion since then, and I miss seeing a lot of my family members that are dead and gone. So sometimes we deal with stuff in life, and we miss family reunions, we miss people we love, we never get to see them again. Maybe we have to give up food or this or that, whatever it is. Life is not fair. But you know what? God is good anyways. Life is not fair, but God is good all the time. Alright, hope you're having a good day. Hey, this is Lewis here again. And on this slide it says, I'm having another baby. or my wife is, at age 38. If you've seen the previous videos or in sequence, you'll get more of an understanding of this. My wife and I was married at age 23. Wanted to start having our children at age 24, and it didn't happen. My wife went through a medical treatment. The doctor said you got 50-50 chance of having a child after the medical treatment. At age 30, we adopted our first son, Jonathan. Then, quite frankly, I was happy with just my wife, Pamela. She was wonderful. We had a wonderful life together. She didn't feel fulfilled as a woman without being a mother. She loved children. So adopting Jonathan was awesome. And still, when we were at the church, living in that fishbowl environment, living on the property there was other staff families living there as well. And for this certain period, it seemed like all kind of staff mothers in that area were having babies left and right all over the place. And it started putting that want back in her heart again, seeing all these neighbors with new babies. And she started a prayer process, and there's a sequence of events here that happened that changed things. One, my wife started praying about it significantly, and she feels a certain prayer she prayed made a big change here. Also, the pastor's wife prayed over her, and then also we went to a church conference and in North Florida. It was a Friday night. It was the end of the week of the conference. They were having a meeting at the very end, sort of closing out the conference. And at the very end of the conference, this guy standing up at the podium, the master of ceremonies, he says, "There's somebody here that's wanting to have a baby. And if you come up here right now, I'm going to pray for you, and you're going to have a baby." Well, to widen the story a little bit, Jonathan, at this point, he was probably about 7 years old. A year or so before that, when he was probably 5-6 years, he looks up at Pam and says, "Mom, I want a brother or sister. So you better pray about it, because I can't do nothing about it." He started praying about it, and he prayed about it for 2 years. In the process, this master of ceremonies guy called us. He said, "If you'll come up right now, I'm going to pray for you, and you're going to have a baby." Of course, Jonathan and I looked over each other, and he was just a little 7-year-old with bright eyes and bugged out and looking at me as excited as anything, and I was too. And we look over at Pam, and of course Pam, a very private person, does not want to go up front. And anyway, she reluctantly goes up front, and this man prays over us. And within 3 months from the time he prayed, she's pregnant, and within a year from the time he prayed, our child was born. A miracle, a supernatural miracle. In fact, before we knew it was a girl or a boy, we used to call him Miracle. And his name is Joshua Caleb. So I believe in prayer, I believe in miracles, and I believe it because I've seen it. I've seen it over and over and over again. This is just one small little story. It is absolutely amazing. And so anyways, God is good. Hope you're having a great day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. Hello, this is Lewis here again, and on this slide we're going to talk about diabetic retinopathy at age 53. Now what? Like I said before, I was diagnosed with being a diabetic at age 35 when I first went into the doctor the first time, and they did check my blood. I was 428. Anybody that knows anything about numbers know that's pretty high. And so I wasn't no minor diabetic. I started out big time, 428 right up there big time. So at age 53, I'm 18 years into the disease. A lot of the things as a diabetic you fear the most, your vision, your legs, blindness, amputation, all those kind of things is, You're thinking, I hope that never happens to me. And in 53, that was around 2010. To give you a little background on this, is my wife and I were both realtors, full-time realtors, and we used to drive people around Ocala, Florida, show them properties. And sometimes they'd ride in our vehicle, and sometimes they'd ride in their vehicle and follow our vehicle. A lot of times people would say, I want to look at 3 homes, 5 homes, whatever. We'd get the addresses, put them all in order to save the most gas and mileage, and then we'd use the GPS. Even though I was using the GPS and I knew it was a road coming right up with the GPS, sometimes the streets were so close I didn't want to turn prematurely, and I would wait until I get up close enough to the sign so I could make sure I turned at the right road. Unfortunately, most of the time I couldn't read the sign, and by the time I got on top of it, I was already passing it, which means I had to go down a ways, 2 or 3 streets, do a U-turn, come back, make another left turn, go to the turn with the people following me, maybe do that 3, 4 times on the way to each house, times 3 to 5 houses. I knew I had a problem. So I thought, man, my glasses are really bad. I got to get some new glasses. So I went in, got the glass. Of course, knowing I'm a diabetic, they don't just give me the read the E-chart sign. They dilate your eyes and they look inside and look at the retinas and do all that stuff. So anyways, my doctor looked at my eyes and basically said, that I had retinopathy, and she sent me to a specialist. That was in 2010. So that was 6 years ago. They immediately started laser surgery on my eyes, and since then I've been dealing with other surgeries since. So, you know what? Sometimes life wants to slow you down. That was 6 years ago. It's made life very difficult on me because in the course of the last 6 years I've had a few different jobs. Most of them were life insurance jobs because of my life insurance license. And a lot of times I had to go through extensive training, licenses, and then also you had fine print on contracts, like very small print, like 6 and 8 pitch, smaller than regular pitch you would read in a book, and very, very, very difficult. And then when I would go to trainings at different places, trying to read the manuals to learn the stuff to take the test was almost impossible. And I learned over time to actually take the pages out of the notebook, put them in my printer, scan them, the text, then take the text and convert it to MP3, burn the MP3 on a disc, CD, or a little player that you put your earbuds in your ear and actually listen with my earbuds, or put the little CD in the car CD or the house CD and listen to the book and let the book literally read to me because I couldn't read the book. And I've dealt with that the last 6 years, and it's been tough, but you do what you got to do. And I'm reminded of a story right now. I like I said earlier, all things work together for good to them that love God and to them that are called according to His purpose. I stop and I think about a story in the Bible, and we read about Paul, which was a great man and leader, which wrote most of the New Testament. Some people believe he had some kind of a problem in his body, possibly his eyes. And of course we know that he went to prison and was under house arrest and prison guard most of his time. And in that time he had a lot of spare time. He had a lot of spare time to sit there and write letters, which became epistles to the churches, which makes up a lot of the New Testament in our Bible today. And so his imprisonment actually worked out for the good of the gospel. If he had problems with his eyes, he probably had somebody there that actually translated or wrote for him. I really don't know. But is I stop and look at the trials and tribulations that I've had in my life, and there's been plenty. I barely covered hardly any of them. I can see a character in the Bible and say, you know what? He went through that, and I'm going through that. And he went through that, and I'm going through that. And he went through that, and I'm going through that. And then I think about diabetic retinopathy in the eyes, and I'm thinking, you know what? Did Paul go through that? And yet he still did something for the Lord. And I stop and I think, our world is totally changing. Totally changing. Many years ago we used to raise money and send missionaries on the other side of the world to spread the gospel and do this and that. But you know what? All you have to do now is just put a video out on the internet, and it's multiplied in multiple places all over the world. All over the world. So you and I can become missionaries to spread the gospel or to change the world in other positive ways, just by doing a little video, sharing a little story. And you know what? We don't even have to see to do that. We could literally be blind. The Lord could use a blind person to spread the gospel. And in fact, sometimes we don't have the guts to get out and do what I'm doing now until it comes to that. So many of us, and I've been guilty of it as well, we all want to portray ourselves as we got it all together and we're healthy and good and perfect, and make everything that we're perfect and blessed and nothing's going wrong in our lives. But you know what? I think most of us out there have issues from time to time in certain areas, one thing or another. And if we can just lower our guard, lower our pride, and say, Lord, I don't have much. I just got a little bit left here. But Lord, you can do something with that little bit. In fact, you can do much with that little bit. Lord, I give it to you. So I guess that's my challenge for me and for you. What will you give the Lord? What do you have left to give the Lord? Because He takes weaknesses and makes it strong. He will make something out of nothing, because that's just the kind of God He is. Hope you're having a great day. Talk to you later. Hey, this is Lewis here, and in this slide we're going to talk about I'm losing my vision. I can't read the print. Now what? At age 59. In my previous video I talked about how I found out I had retinopathy. That was in 2010, and at about age 53. So I went through laser treatments and all kinds of other treatments trying to help my eyes. Many times I didn't have the insurance or the money to even do it, and I didn't get the treatment that I should have when I needed it. Either my insurance wasn't good enough or I didn't have the money to pay the high co-pays. And I really didn't give myself the treatment that I should have, and it caused more damage to my eyes than should have happened. And that's what I'm dealing with today. Anyways, my wife and I used to be real estate agents. We went through the crash in 2007 and 2008. In the process, I got my life insurance license, and from 2008 to 2016 as a life insurance agent, it opened up quite a few doors in employment, especially because most of the jobs are commission only, and they pay you. If they get paid, they can't lose. So it's pretty easy to get a job when you're an old guy like me. And the problem is with life insurance, you've got to read them small print in the contracts. And also, I had a little computer with gray print and the gray on gray and the quoting software. was like gray on gray, and then the print was so small, about pitch 6 or 8, very, very small. And I would have my glasses on, my reading computer glasses, the best that I could get, and I would get 9 to 12 inches away from the computer and still couldn't read it. And then I got one of these 3-inch magnifying glasses you get on eBay for reading a book or whatever, and I put it in between my glasses and the screen where it's about 4 inches from the screen and 4 inches from my glasses, and I still couldn't read it. And I would be trying to quote a quote for a customer, and it got to a point where I realized I couldn't continue because I couldn't read it, and I was making mistakes on typing the contracts and writing the contracts, and I knew that I just couldn't continue. So I decided I just had to leave and quit that, and that was the end of my employment, February of 2016. So right now I'm going through that process, trying to figure out what to do next. But God is good. And one good thing is I've actually been able to get a little bit of medical treatment since then, and I don't know if it's going to help or not. I'm still working on it. But sometimes these things happen in life to cause us to make a change. Because you know what? If I was still working at the insurance job, I'd be out there knocking on doors, getting hot and sweaty, and calling and cold calling and trying to get somebody to make an appointment with. Just hard sales work. And I'd be so busy doing that, and then tired at the end of the day and come home and just, I'm done. And many times calling at night, because you had to call people at night when they were off work, making appointments. But you know what? I wouldn't be making this video right now. I wouldn't be recording my voice right now if that didn't happen. Because right now I have time, and I've had time to think about my vision, my dreams since age 35, the last 25 years of my life. And I've been thinking about, are you ever going to do them? Are you ever going to fulfill them? And I think to myself, I don't know. I really don't know. Can I? I'm not sure. Do I have the money? No, I don't. Well, then how can you do it? But this here is allowing me to take time to put this in a recording. And even if I do nothing more than record a few videos here to send this message out to you, to challenge you to fulfill your vision. Maybe my vision is to stir up vision in others so they can accomplish goals and visions and dreams. Because you know what? If I can do this with my medical condition, then you can do this or more. You can do it. You have to have confidence. You have to be positive. You can do it. I used to program a lot of programs for my wife as a realtor. She'd want me to do custom programs for her. You say, I want you to do such and such. I don't know. I can't do that. You can do that. I don't think I can do that. You can do that. She'd push me, and it would take me a month or two, but I would do it. And then she'd say, I got another idea. I want you to do such and such. I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. You can do it. I know you can do it. Okay, I'll try. And I think, and I try, and I pray, and I try, and I do it. And I do it. And you could repeat that story on and on and on about 7 times, where to higher levels of technology and complication and programming, things that I couldn't even dream that I could do, that actually happened. And not that I was so skilled. It's just that somebody believed in me. somebody encouraged me, and I tried, and I prayed, and I tried, and I worked hard, tenaciously, and I didn't quit, and I got it done. So I think success in life is more perseverance, steadfastness, more just stick-to-itiveness, and just smart brain power. There's so many people out there that successful people that maybe didn't graduate college, this or that, but they worked hard and they stuck to it and they did the job. So I believe you can do it too, and do what you can. I'm doing what I can right now. Do what you can. Change your community, change your world, change your church, change your job, change your family, change your finances. Whatever it is, you can do it. Talk to you later. Hey, Lewis here again. On this slide here, it's now I'm almost 60. Now what? Did I quit on life and my dream? A really big dream to help others around the world at age 59. You know, sometimes when we try something or dream it and desire it, and it seems like the things just don't come together, the finances don't come together, that you think, you know what? Maybe I was just off base. And after a while you can get discouraged and don't really have the hope to continue. Sometimes we just need to encourage each other. Sometimes maybe we just need to pass that dream on to others and multiply that dream. Talk to you later. Hey there, this is Lewis here again, and on the slide here it's remember, all things work together for good. Okay, I've said that several times in this here. I guess I need to hear it myself. And here it says, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. So, do we love God? You have to say yes or no. And are you called according to his purpose? We have to say yes or no. If you could say yes to those two questions, then we know that all things work together for good. So that means diabetes is working for my good. That means diabetic retinopathy is working for my good. That means my wife having to go through an operation, not be able to have a child. That's for my good? Yes. In the last example, we was able to adopt a beautiful son, Jonathan, and change his life, and he's an awesome young man right now. And we went through the struggle of waiting to have a child by birth. We also learned some other things, because that first 7 years, when we'd go to church and it would be on a Sunday morning and they would celebrate Mother's Day, and then at the end of the service they'd call up and give all the mothers a rose or a flower and say Happy Mother's Day. My wife would sit there in the pew and watch them with their heart broken and torn. Most people don't even know that. Most people don't even think that way because they don't even understand it, and they don't have a large enough perspective to even see the big picture, because they haven't been on both sides of the fence. We have. Through that, it allowed my wife to minister to other ladies in the church and friends in the community that also was not able to have children. And she could counsel them and be a friend to them, minister to them, and help them. But amazingly, when we had a child later, which we were ecstatic about, she was on the other side of the fence. And she wasn't in the place to counsel those that didn't have children. And in fact, they were maybe uncomfortable around her after that because of that. It's amazing how life can change, the perspectives can change. But through our suffering and lack, we can help other people. We can minister to other people. We can have a greater understanding and wisdom to help other people. What is knowledge? Experience. Knowledge and experience equals wisdom. Sometimes we have to go through the hard times, through the suffering, get a real understanding of life and what's going on. So let's believe that all things work together for our good. Don't let the negative things destroy you. Let them help you be a better person. Let them help you be a stronger person to overcome them, and use those experiences as stepping stones to be stronger and to help other people. Talk to you later. Hello, this is Lewis here again, and on this slide it says forgiveness starts with me. This story doesn't really flow with all the other slides I put together, but it's a pretty significant little story that happened in my life, and I think most of us can relate to it, so I wanted to go ahead and insert it in the video series here. The bottom line is we all go through life, and we're going to go through some hardships in life. In some cases, we're going to have either a family member, friend, employer, whatever, hurt us or do something to disappoint us, maybe make us angry. And if we're not careful, we can actually get anger and unforgiveness towards that person. And this little story is actually a story that I dealt with personally, and that's why I chose to share it. We probably all had an employer that is difficult to work for. I had one in particular that would have these anger attacks, and they were irrational, uncontrollable. And they would just have these rants and fits and be really cruel to employees. And then they seems like they'd get rid of one employee, and then there'd be another employee, and they always had this one employee that was on their beating pole, or whatever you want to call it. And this one particular person I had a very difficult time with, and I was dealing with unforgiveness in my heart quite a bit. And when our first son, Jonathan, was about 5, my wife wanted to stay home and raise our kids, and she wanted to do homeschooling rather than the public school system. And she did some research, and she found a certain kind of curriculum she wanted to use. And to do this, we lived in Florida. We had to drive all the way to Tennessee to go through a 1-week training or prerequisite before we could get the curriculum and teach the curriculum to our son. And there was people driving all over the U.S., from California all the way to Tennessee for this. It was absolutely amazing. In fact, this training was in an auditorium that held about 10,000 people. And they were actually using a college dormitory for the facilities where we stayed. And one of the lessons that one of the teachers taught was about forgiveness and tearing down our walls and not giving ground to the enemy. And I already knew that I was dealing with unforgiveness and a lot of hurt in my heart, almost to the point of rage. And I went into that cold dormitory room that night, It was all metal. It was very cold. I said, "Okay, Lord." I said a little prayer. I said, "Lord, I know this person's done me wrong, but I choose to forgive them because you said I need to. I don't feel it, but I choose to forgive them. And I can't explain it, but something supernatural happened that day. And a change happened. Can't even explain it. Went back to Florida. Went back to that supervisor and said, and I tried to do I forgive you this and that. I think it was Matthew 18. And they still threw it back in my face. And I realized then that I had done what I could do, and I tried even on my part in a place of humility to try to restore a relationship and do what I can, and the person refused to humble themselves and be part of that process. I learned that I did my part, and forgiveness was done in my heart, and the healing was done in my heart. And you know what? I still had to be careful not to get angry and have the feelings, because this person was just that ornery. But I found that forgiveness is a choice. Forgiveness is a choice of the will, not of the feeling. I didn't feel like forgiving them. I didn't want to forgive them in that room when I prayed. I didn't want to forgive them when I talked to them face to face. I didn't want to forgive them when I worked with them day after day, as ornery as they were. There was no want to in it. But I chose to do it. It was an act of the will. And once I acted on the will in obedience, I found that the healing began in my heart. And over time, a lot of the pain and anger began to fade away. It wasn't immediate, it took time, but I had to let go. And I had to choose, am I going to judge this person and not forgive them? Because it's not my place to judge them. It's not my place. I don't hold that position. So I'm not going to. I'm not going to judge him. It's not my place. That's somebody else's job. I'm not going to do it. So if you have unforgiveness in your heart, or somebody has disappointed you, have your little private prayer and forgive them in your heart through your will. And then you can try to restore a relationship with them, and they may respond positively or negatively. If they respond positively, that's great for both of you. If they respond negatively, you've done your part. You can't control their part. They will be judged for their part. Don't worry about that. Anyways, forgiveness starts with me, starts with you. So we got to choose to forgive others. That's our first step. Talk to you later. Have a great day. Hey, this is Lewis here again, and I'm going to cover a few slides in this one here. Just felt to do this, not really sure why. The golden rule, do unto others, Galatians 5:14. When I grew up as a boy, which was at this point about 55 years ago, um, we used to hear about the golden rule all the time. Do unto others. And of course now people try to use something called the platinum rule, like you do unto others as they want to be treated, but I still go with the golden rule. The golden rule, I think ultimately the golden rule comes from the Ten Commandments, which we don't really hear much about anymore. But If you want to look it up, you can look up Exodus 20 verses 3 through 17, the Ten Commandments. Um, in that, you're going to find that there are some of the commandments deal directly with God, and the other commandments deal directly with men and our fellow man. And you can read them and look them up accordingly. I'm not going to go through all that detail now, but what I'm trying to do is show in the Old Testament there was 10 commandments, the law of Moses. Then a lawyer actually challenged Jesus, and I want to read just a few scriptures here in the New Testament. It said, "Then one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question, tempting him, and saying, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment." This here is talking about a relationship with God. If you look at the Ten Commandments, I think it's the first 4 or 10 have to do with God. This next slide I'm going to show you is, and the second is like unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Matthew 22:35 through 40. So what we find here is a lawyer which was very educated in the biblical law was trying to trick Jesus or challenge him. And he asked Jesus a question, and this is how the Messiah actually answered him. So we know we have the law of Moses, the 10 Commandments, which was given on Mount Sinai through Moses, the 10 Commandments, and then here they're being summarized into 2 basic categories, God and man. Now, I want to take you one step farther, and this here is my favorite verse in the Bible, because after I saw this, and I'd been studying so many years and teaching, this here made so much sense. Galatians 5:14. For all, all the law is fulfilled in one word. Even in this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So the 10 Commandments can be summarized to the 2, can be summarized ultimately to this one word, love. If you take and you had a bullseye and you were trying to hit a bullseye with an arrow or whatever in a target, the entire Bible, the Old Testament, the New Testament, has to do, and the bullseye is love. Love the Lord thy God, and love thy neighbor as thyself. And of course we know that Jesus Messiah died on the cross for our sins, the ultimate payment of love for each and every one of us. And that is how he fulfilled the law of love and giving to God first. He did it for his Father, and he did it for you and I, his neighbor. So all the law is fulfilled in one word, even in this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, Galatians 5:14. So, without getting real complicated and trying to be a biblical scholar and read every word in the Old Testament or every word in the New Testament, or whether you are a particular religion, you don't even believe in the New Testament, or you're from a different religion, ultimately, this one word, if any of us and every one of us would apply this one word in the world, across the world, and show compassion and love for other people, what a different world we would have today. What a different world we would have today. So it really doesn't come down to religion and, what does he believe and what religion is that and what about this and I disagree with that. Can we agree on one thing? That we should love our neighbor as ourselves? That we should be kind to others? That we should show compassion to others? That we can show that compassion and love in our community to others? through love. And you know what? We've all come from different backgrounds, and we can say, well, I'm the left wing, I'm the right wing, and I believe in this, and I believe in that, and you don't believe in this. And we could all get caught up in all these little discussions. But I like what one person said in a song once. They said, you know what? If the people would just put down their picket signs and the picket lines, lay them down on the ground, and walk across the line and hug that other person, what a different world we would have. Now, there's nothing wrong with having standards and believing in certain things, okay? We're all from different backgrounds. We're going to have different belief systems. We all grew up in different families with different upbringings, belief systems, backgrounds. That's the way it's going to be. We can't change that. We all had different moms and dads, different countries, cultures, all kind of things. But this is what I personally believe ultimately. Until we show love for our neighbor, we're not going to be able to offer anything. Anything. When I went to that church for 43 years, in many of those years, probably about 17 or 18, I was in the upper administration, which means assistant director all the way up to corporate officer. I would have homeless people and drug addicts walk into that property. And we'd have a mission downtown where they were supposed to come in and get the free food off the streets. And we had another center where we actually had the thrift store. And sometimes the homeless people would walk to the wrong place. They didn't know which place was what. They would walk into the thrift center instead of the mission downtown. I remember one particular day a guy came in and he was hungry. It was in the middle of the day. Lunch wasn't being served. The kitchen was shut down. Everything was cleaned up. And he came in and he said, I'm hungry. Can you get me a sandwich? I said, sure. Come on. And I walked him back into the kitchen, and the cook had to get all his stuff out after he cleaned up the kitchen and everything, and sat the guy down in that kitchen that held 160 men to eat, and sat down and ate his sandwich. A lot of the people coming in to the work were homeless, alcoholics, drug addicts, crack addicts, cocaine addicts, prostitutes, you name it. They came there because they needed help. They needed someone. They needed basic necessities of life. Stuff that maybe you and I take for granted. They needed food, clothing, and shelter. We offered them food, 3 hot meals a day. We offered them shelter, a bed and a shower, and gave them clothing and provided for them. They worked either with the truck or either on the sales floor, whatever, did a miscellaneous job. Some people were so sick and tired they couldn't do hardly anything. We gave them piddly little jobs, just something to stay busy and have a little bit of self-esteem. Because when they did something, they felt better about themselves and had some self-esteem. I had many, 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 many men contact me over the years and say, I saw your name and phone number in the prison. They would write me a letter. Can you help me? Can you help me? And I would get those letters to the intake counselors and we would get it coordinated. And if we could, we would try to help them get in the program. Because our program was free, the line was longer than the beds were available. They were always full. First of all, people would rather be out of prison than in prison. So we did help a lot of people. After I left of 20 years, before I moved to Central Florida, there's one particular story I like to think of here. This guy was a crack dealer. He was probably about 27 years old, had a wife of about the same age, and had two little girls, two little blonde-haired twin girls. They were about age 5 each. And he was supposed to go to prison. They were supposed to throw the key away. And I don't know how, somehow, they actually got him a pass to go to our program. He came to our program and went through the Bible classes and the work and all that. And his wife would come every Sunday with his two little girls and come to church and visit him on the grounds in the afternoon and visit together, play together. And he and I worked side by side. And I had a fractured wrist, and I would literally lift the furniture off the back of the truck with my fractured wrist and be on the other end of the couch with him and move it into the thrift store over and over again. I would mop the floors and sweep the floors with my fractured wrist with him. Now, I guess it's for those reasons that he saw me work beside him and not tell him what to do, that it must have changed his life. Because the last day that I was there, the last service I was there, we got through with the service, and he walked me over to the side of the church in the side wall. You got to remember, this is a crack addict that's been dealing crack to the community. He looked me in the eyes with tears in his eyes and said, "You're the example I needed." And to know that you can help a family, a mother, some young children, just by being available, just by showing some kindness, just by showing some love, by giving people their basic needs, food, shelter, and clothing, then they may be willing to listen to what you have to say. It's one thing to talk and teach, it's another thing to lead by example. When you do that, each and every person listening to me, you can do that in your community. This particular church, which is in 3 counties in South Florida, it started out as a little teeny 1-acre piece of property in a small little building with some donated theater seats with bubble gum on the bottom of the seats. It started out with 6 men in the program, and this founder that started it, he felt challenged to start it. He had this little prayer. And he said, "Lord, I don't know how to help no alcoholic." And he felt this answer back. He said, "Do you know how to make a bed?" And he said, "Yes, Lord, I know how to make a bed." "Do you know how to put food in a plate and put the plate on the table?" "Yes, Lord, I know how to put food on the table." He said, "Well, that's all you need to do." And that's the way he started that great ministry. Just 6 men. They started out with getting donated clothing from the people in the church and in the community, and then backing a pickup truck to the corner in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and selling clothing off the back tailgate of a pickup truck. They didn't have millions of dollars to start that. They took some clothing and just sold it off the back of a pickup truck. So, anyways, if we're going to help people out there, whether it be in our backyard or whether it's on the other side of the world, we have to love the neighbor as ourselves. Hope you're having a great day. Hello, this is Lewis again. Got another couple slides here. And this dream is a really big dream. Do you want to share my story, a really big dream to help others around the world? Will you help me today and into the future of time and destiny? I don't really know where to go from here. I feel like I've done my part. I put some thoughts into recording, into video. Maybe it's just to challenge you to do what you can in your local community. Maybe you have a small church. Maybe you have a large church. Maybe you have no church at all. Maybe you're not involved with the church at all. We all can change our world today. You can change your community. You know, as I look around, I live into a small community in Central Florida. When I look around, there is no shortage of homeless people and people that are hurting. Because I worked in that environment for 43 years, I can pretty much tell a con from the genuine. Some people think, you know what, people got themselves into this, let them deal with it. What I found out from spending all that time at the ministry in South Florida, that you know what, alcoholism has no respect of finances, of anything. Now there's some people, yes, that are lazy, that have brought a lot of stuff on themselves. And there's some people through different circumstances have gotten themselves into alcoholism in a gradual process. I've known people from poor and uneducated to people that graduated from Yale and Harvard, very educated, that lost their wife and then later started drinking, became an alcoholic, then lost everything they had in their career and their home, and then checked in our program. Very, very, very successful people. With alcoholics, we found out it took 20, 30, 40 years before they even realized they had a real problem because it was such a gradual process. Plus, alcoholism was legal. You could buy beer and alcohol over the counter. So you didn't go to jail for it, not unless you had a DUI or DWI. Crack, on the other hand, and other drugs are illegal. So, and plus, more addictive. So, where it maybe took 20, 30, 40 years with alcohol, with crack, it maybe took 2 years to bring people to their knees. It was so addictive, and then they would steal stuff from their family or whatever to get money to hawk it at the shop to get money to buy another crack. So actually what it did is we found out that it brought people to their knees faster, and because of that, sometimes the wives and the children were still in the picture, and was able to recover. The person was able to recover and get back with their family and restore it at a younger age with the drugs, regardless of the circumstance. There's plenty of opportunity out there to help a lot of people. So hopefully this video will just encourage you what you can do. There's a lot of different ideas. I have some ideas. Most of my ideas are really very simple. Very, 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 very simple. If you look on the internet today, you're going to see everybody and their brother trying to sell their goods and their services. And one way a lot of people do it is they have these webinars. They record these 2 and these 3-hour webinars, and then they play them over and over and over again like a live webinar, trying to sell their goods and services. They record it 2 to 3 hours, and they just replay it over and over and over again to make money. What if you could take that technology in whatever particular niche you wanted to help, like alcoholism, or a women's ministry, or unwed mothers, you fill in the blank, and you could go across the country, the United States, and across the world, and find the best of the best programs that are out there. If you're somebody out there with finances and money, and you want to help develop the world and help other people, I'm just going to suggest a model here right now. You create an organization, you create a video team. You search out the best of the best of the best all over the United States. You get permission from the owners, board of directors, whoever in legal writing, whatever you need to do, and you create a video series of the teaching and the outlines of the principles that they use, and create a video series, something that somebody can, let's say they can log in, and then you have this training series of some of the best of the best of the best of the best that can be replicated all over the world. Then what you do is you recruit people of like-minded. In other words, somebody that wants to help in the women's ministry, you look for volunteers. Then you set up a program where they are mentored with the best of the best of the best founders and teachers, and they go to those programs and they're mentored, let's say for 6 months, a year. Then you take them out to another city, and you take your finances and you create a foundation financially, a business entity. Within this business entity, now you purchase land and buildings, whatever structure you want for the particular project. You put this person that's just gone through the intern program into the leadership of this new program. From there, you have leaders of leaders. The same way that Moses had elders, 70 elders, which led and took questions and stress away from him. You might have a manager which manages 10 women's ministries, and they travel these 10, making sure these newbies come up to speed in their maturity. So you have accountability in growth. So you have first a base of training which can be done remotely through video training series. Then you have an internship program which is live, hands-on, with the women on site with the best of the best of the best leaders. Then those are broken off into another little mini entities, and you do this over and over and over again, and you have the proper level of management which brings each entity into the proper accountability and growth and maturity, and you duplicate this and you replicate this over and over and over. I'll tell you where part of my dream come from. I've had this dream for about 25 years, but probably about 5 years ago, this concept I'm talking about now came into more clarity because a particular leader that I used to work with, which is a great leader, started a women's ministry in Georgia. And since then I think has started a second one, and he might even have beyond 2 by now. And every December he would send out a newsletter and say, can you donate? But in this one particular newsletter he sent out, this is what he said. And you got to remember, this guy's about 60 years old, and he and his wife work really hard all the time. And at this point he's got like 2 ministries, right? And he's writing this in the letter to everybody he sends it out to, including myself. He says, by the time I die, I want 100 of these women's ministries across the country. Now, there's 50 states in the United States. 100 divided by 50 is 2. That would be an average of 2 women's ministry programs per state, not counting the other entities. And he's got 2 now, and he's got 98 to go. Without a miracle, it's not going to happen. Okay? His life's not long enough, and he don't have enough money. And you know what? If I tried to raise enough money to do this or administrate this all myself, I could not do it. I might be able to coordinate some ideas and some of the concepts I'm sharing with you now. But if a few people listen to this video and actually get a vision or dream of this, and you want to create 100 women's ministries in the U.S., and then go beyond that and into the world, and then you can plug in alcohol ministries, crack ministries, cocaine ministries, orphanages, you name it. Go on and on and on and on. Look in your local community and see where people are hurting and see where the need is and solve the problem. Don't wait for the government to dish out the money and crank up the programs. It's not going to happen fast enough. If you want to change this world, you've got to get involved. You got to change it. If people just listen and replicate what I'm saying right now throughout the U.S. and across the world, and each local community utilizes their resources and their volunteers, and there's people out there, corporate businesses, and other large churches, and entrepreneurs, and people that have a lot of money that just say, what can I do? What can I do to change the world? There it is. That's just a simple model. You find a need, replicate. Find a need, replicate. One thing I did as an administrator is when I got things set up, I put them on autopilot like a greased machine that worked perfect. And what I would do is after I would get them going, I would look at all of my leaders and I would say on this particular job, who is the best at this job? Then I would go to that person, I would say, I want you to write me a full description, job description, your job description, and all the steps to carry out these duties that you do on a monthly basis. I want it in writing, and I want it turned into me by such and such. You know what? They didn't like that because it was work for them to do that. But I had manual after manual after manual of leaders in each duty that could be replicated. And I didn't pick the people that was sorry at the job. I found the people that was doing a particular job and they had it perfected down to a science and they were good at it. And if something happened to them or they quit or anything happened, I wanted to make sure it could be replicated with employee number 2. You do that with this concept in the community. Find the best of the best of the best of the best of the best. And if they're ministry or civically minded that want to help the community, they'd probably be glad to help you videotape it. You know, you might need to get some lawyers and do some disclaimers and this and that to protect this person and that person. I'm sure somebody that's got the money can get the lawyers to do all the legal stuff. So, you know, the liability doesn't fall back on the original party, which, you know, you recorded or whatever. But this can be replicated to a science. And these videos and these trainings can go and be just sent out there en masse to help different communities. So that's just one concept that I have for today. Create replication, create a system that's turnkey, train in tours, create accountable membership, accountable management to keep track of everything. Hope you're having a great day. Talk to you later now. Bye-bye.